Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. 70 AD would mark a crucial, pivotal point in our ancestors' history. A prophecy that would soon to play out right before our forefathers' very eyes in real time. A time of great calamity would soon be upon them. Their disobedience to the Most High would confirm their downfall from the rebellious lips of the Hebrews before them, and plunge them into total mayhem for centuries to come. The agonizing, the crucial, the hardship chain of events that soon followed would send them fleeing into the wilderness like desperate refugees into different parts what is now called today Africa and parts of the Middle East. This very moment would have our forefathers fleeing like dogs, fleeing for their lives, as the Roman Emperor Vespasian and his son Titus lays waste to an unpromising temple. At that very moment, the words of our YAHUAH HaMashiach would hit its mark. There should not be one stone left upon another. Let him not come back to his house to gather his belongings. Those who stayed to ride out the horrible terror would be punished severely by the Romans. Many would be made slaves, while others brutally killed. The words of our forefathers echoes in their ears. Let his blood be on us and our children's children. What a shame, what a shame, what a shame. The book of Matthew chapter 24, 15 through 22 says it best like this. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso reads, let him understand. Then let them which be in Yahud flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Shabbat, for then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Let's ask ourselves the question, Zion. What made our forefathers so stiff-necked? After centuries of warning from the Most High, what made our people so stiff-necked? What made our people constantly go after idols, go after the other nations, go after their foreign women? What was it that was in us that caused such a dilemma that kept us from worshiping the Most High Yah? As we read in Matthew 24, Yahushua HaMashiach gave our forefathers a profound warning of what would happen to them if they did not turn from their wicked ways. Their proud hearts and demon-possessed minds would seal their impending doom. They had committed the ultimate crime against the Most High Yah, complete denial of Yahuwah. Now I want to share a book with you all. It's called From Babylon to Timbuktu, and it's written by Dr. Rudolph R. WINDSOR. Now, just a little bit about him, and I would encourage every awakened Israelite, newly awakened Israelite, to get this book. But, he's one of the only few black scholars who had actually proven that the Israelites who left Jerusalem in 70 AD were indeed black. And he proved that through historical facts without a shadow of a doubt. But I want to read to you some of his biography. I'm not going to read all of it, but just to kind of give you an idea of his background. And it says, Dr. Rudolph R. WINDSOR was born in Lost Branch, New Jersey. After living in a number of Jersey communities, his family settled in Philadelphia, where he attended community college, studying psychology and political science. He continued his education pursuits at Gratz College, major in Hebrew, Aramaic studies, Temple University, where he majored in Middle Eastern studies, and the University of Metaphysics, where he received his PhD. So the brother is very smart, very, very intelligent, and he has done a lot of research and studies. He goes on to say about his book, From Babylon to Timbuktu, my motive in writing it is to give a true history of the Afro-Americans, which have been excluded from some textbook. Dr. WINDSOR is a strong advocate of the economic, cultural, and moral development of the black community. So he has done a lot of work with his people. Now, I don't know how awakened Dr. Rudolph WINDSOR is, but he has proven a lot of things. He has proven that the Israelites who had left Jerusalem were indeed black. And I'm going to read this last part, and then we're going to get into some of his books, because I want to read you a few inserts concerning 70 AD. So finally, Dr. WINDSOR, over the years, has appeared on radio and TV talk shows. He's lectured at congregations, organizations, universities, and has traveled to Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and the Caribbean. So he's been around and doing this work, giving the true history of our people. In his book, From Babylon to Timbuktu, Dr. Rudolph WINDSOR makes this statement. In the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Israelite state with great slaughter. During the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. I find that very interesting because, and you know how it was, growing up in elementary, growing up in middle school, high school, we were always taught that those who fled in 70 AD were Caucasian people claiming to be Jews. And it's something, because we believed that. We literally believed that. And we sat up in those classes and listened to our teachers explain to us, show us all these Caucasian images of the Israelites, and we believed it. We were really caught up in that, and we believed it. We believed every word of it. We were brainwashed by our ministers, and we sat in our churches and listened to these ministers say that we must send money to Israel. We must send all this money over there to help these people, because if there's no peace in Israel, there's not going to be no peace around the world. But see, here's the lie, and here's the deception. There was never any peace ever since they came over there anyway. Ever since they claimed to be a state in 1947, 1948, there was never any peace over there. They have always been at war with their neighboring countries. Always. Even unto this very day. So they are not the true people of the ancient Israel. They claim to be. Somebody's lying. There has been a plot to destroy the true black Hebrews. And the very same people who own all the media, who owns Hollywood, who runs our movie industry, have strategically implemented themselves into all these movies, into all these Bible movies, the 10 Commandments, all these Bible movies that came out, all you see are Caucasians. So the identity that was hidden on purpose. And there was an agenda to whitewash and to black out the true Hebrews, who they really were, because they know the truth. They know the true history of who the real true Israelites were. They know that the Israelites were black then and are still black today. And they're going to do all in their power to keep that identity hidden. Well, I got news for them. They cannot stop the power of our Elohim. And that hidden identity that they're trying so hard to keep hidden, the Most High is awakening. He is awakening that hidden identity. But so many of our people are still delusional and caught up in a lie, believing that the Israelites look like this. Now, some of you might know who the late Egyptian president was by the name of Gamal Abdel Nasser. Gamal Abdel Nasser was born on 15 January 1918 and died on 28 September 1970. He was Egypt's second president. Now, he would later say something that would be so profound that it would resonate across the entire Middle East and also the West. Now, he says something very significant. The very words that Gamal Abdel Nasser pronounced would spark nationwide outcry. Now, mind you, this man is a Palestinian. Now, he would later make a statement on a post concerning the Middle East, and it goes on like this. When he was asked about peace in the Middle East, the late president of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, stated, "The Jews will never be able to live here in peace, because they left here black and came back white." Now, you have some critics out there who are trying to debunk this. They are saying that this statement was never written. They are saying that it's not true. It's not a true statement, and no one can find proof of it. However, there are many videos on this man with interviews and what have you. But they did not find any source or any references to this statement. But the only thing they found were things that were written. But then you have some people who are trying to disprove that. Now, we got to ask ourselves the question, Zion. Think about it. Now, if you were part of the world leaders or the elite, and you knew there were a bunch of lies out there, and at the same time you were taking on somebody else's identity, wouldn't you do all you could to make sure that that identity stays hidden? Would you want the truth coming out, especially if you're proclaiming to be somebody that you're not, and you're making money off of it, you're progressing off of it, you're benefiting off of it? Wouldn't you want to keep that a secret? You wouldn't want that to get out. So think about it. Even if there were a video of this Egyptian president, this late president, saying such a thing, then don't you think that they would have not allowed that thing? They would have destroyed that tape. They would have destroyed that video. I mean, come on. You really believe that they're going to allow you to say that the Israelites were actually black. That's an insult to them. These elites that rule the world, they cannot afford to allow these lies to be exposed. So they're going to do all in their power to keep this thing in the dark. Besides, think about it. They spent trillions of dollars into the media, the news outlets, politics, religion, all for the sake of keeping the Most High's true people ignorant. And we grew up believing a lie. But time is coming now where all the things that were hidden in the dark is coming out to the light. And this is all the Most High Yah's doing. His Ruach is bringing all of this stuff out to the light. And this is why you see a hardcore awakening through the Spirit of the Most High around the world, across the nations, to the four corners of the earth. Now, getting back to the book called From Babylon to Timbuktu by Dr. Rudolph WINDSOR. Now, I want to read something that he quoted, that he made a statement about concerning 70 AD. And this is on page 84. It says, during the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Israelites fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery. The slave markets were full of black Israelite slaves. Now, there was a guy by the name of, he's a Caucasian self-proclaimed rabbi, and his name is Harry Rosenberg. Now, I'm going to show you a clip that he did. Now, I don't know where he was when he did this. It looks like he was at a university or something. But he even admitted that there were millions of Israelites who fled into Africa, just as it's stated right here. And other facts can be proven that as well, too. But he admitted that millions of Israelites fled into Africa. He also would later admit in that clip that I'm about to show you that the Caucasians were actually converts, that they were converts to the newly Jewish religion. So he admitted a lot of things in this clip. And see, that goes to show you, even a lot of these self-proclaimed scholars even know the truth, who are the real true Hebrews.
And I'd like to now bring up another interesting place that you're finding descendants of the Israelites, but may not necessarily be from the 10 tribes, but will also play a role. And it shouldn't be overlooked. It's a very serious scenario. Is in Africa. Africa has perhaps hundreds of millions of people with this identity right now of being from the people of Israel. Does that mean they were from the 10 tribes? Likely not. We were taught by the historians and within our own traditions that when the Romans conquered Judea, a few hundred years after that the tribes of Israel went into exile, perhaps millions of Judeans were sold into slavery, into Africa, into Rome, deep into Africa. And if you look now, you're seeing people who are most likely the descendants of those slaves who kept true. I'd like to bring up a few specific examples because they're going to be game changers. One of them wrote letters to Israel when it became a state. And they said, we're Israelites out in Africa. Everyone laughed at them and they said, African Israelites, these people are just trying to jump on the first world country bandwagon. They're living in a third world country. They got nothing. We're coming to Israel. We got innovation, technology. So they're trying to get on this train because there's such a thing called the right of return. All descendants of the Jewish people from around the world are able to move to Israel. So they said we are also. And everyone kind of laughed at them, like I said. And a few people took it serious and went out there and started studying them, learned about their culture. And a professor from Duke University went out there and did DNA testing on them. And he showed not only do they share Semitic genes from people who were in Yemen and back to the Middle East, these gentlemen, a large percent of them, have the Y chromosome to be Kohanim, to be priests. Now, if anyone who doesn't know, a priest is a specific family clan of the nation of Israel who come from Aaron, the brother of Moses, who was the first priest. And anyone descended from Aaron has the the status title priest. And we found that these men in this village in South Africa called Lemba, L-E-M-B-A, carry this genetic marker to let us know that they share the same as from the Sephardic and the Ashkenaz and the population of the people in Israel today. They share the same exact DNA marker. That's mind-blowing. So everyone kind of got humbled a little bit who laughed at them and said, now what? Now what do we do about this? This could have tremendous implications. Another area in Africa you have something big happening is in Nigeria. You have the Igbo people, or Igbo, pronounced either way. There's 40 million of them, also Christians, like I spoke about before, how that could happen to the children of Israel very easily. But also a lot of them are now coming out and converting back or adopting the rules of the Torah without all the paganism that they've been practicing for hundreds of years. There's been books written about it from scholars in Nigeria, from scholars from the Jewish people. And where it gets interesting is, in America, there was a slave trade. And a lot of the slaves, a very high percentage of them, came from Western Nigerian ports. And in America today, you see a very large movement of African Americans who say that they're the real chosen people, that they're the children of Israel, they're the Judeans. You know, so what are they just trying to create an identity for themselves because they were slaves, or is there really something here? And the answer is, most likely there is something there. And most likely, maybe that they were the original Israelites, and maybe that the Jewish people today who are white, Caucasian people came in a little bit later on. We know that some of the greatest sages of the transmission of the Torah were converts from Rome. You have a man named Onkelos who wrote a commentary on the Torah, unprecedented, that we still learn today. He was a convert. Some of the largest pillars on the transmission today were Roman converts. So here we are, I'm speaking, we're Caucasian Jewish people. And now you have people in Africa saying that they're the real people of Israel. It can't be ruled out at all. We know they were sold into slavery. We know now that they're fulfilling prophecies by saying, we're coming.
Now you heard it from the horse's mouth. He has openly admitted to the truth, to the fleeing of black Israelites, fleeing from the Roman Empire in 70 AD. And now also admitting that there were many Caucasian converts to the newly Jewish religion. You see, something like this ought to spark a big fire within us, because there's a lot of information out there and we have access to this now. You know, we live in an information world where we can get on a computer and we can look up stuff and find articles and find the facts for ourselves. But the problem is, no one is going to give you this information. Your pastors are not going to give you this information. Your teachers are not going to give you this information. Nor your historians are not going to give you this information. You have to be the one to dig for it, like hidden treasures. You have to be the one that's going to pick up your Bible and whatever source you're studying from to dig and find the truth for yourself. Because if we don't dig for this truth, no one else is going to do it for us. Now, this next clip I'm about to show you is going to be talking about the rise of the Flavians, which led to the destruction of the temple by Vespasian and his son Titus. Now, I must put a disclaimer out there because some of the characters, the Hebrews, are portrayed as Caucasians. Now, concerning those Israelites who decided to stay back to try to fight the Romans, for example, there was one Israelite by the name of Josephus Bar Matthias. Now, he was one of the main ringleaders that stayed back, but his end would be fatally met by the Romans. And our Hamashiach forewarned our forefathers what would happen, what would become of them, and single-handedly told them that there would not be one stone left upon another. And that prophecy came true with devastating effects that would ring for centuries, and we would still be affected from it to this day, because all this is a result of the sins of our forefathers.
Rome ruled its colonies with a rod of iron, and any resistance was going to be met with brute force.
At this time during Nero's reign, two of the finest military men in the empire were the Flavians, Vespasian and his son Titus.
Vespasian and Titus were military men. They spent a great deal of their life outside of Rome. For over a decade, they had waged war against the Druids in Brittany and Gaul. Vespasian and Titus were successful in essentially destroying the Druids. They left behind no historical record of their existence.
And it's the Flavians that Nero calls upon when he needs to suppress the Jews' rebellion in Judea.
Nero responded by asking his best general, Vespasian, and his son Titus to go into Judea with a huge army, 70,000 troops, and a similar number of support individuals. So they meant business. The Romans came down to crush the rebellion.
In the year 66 CE, the Flavians begin their military campaign against the Jews. They start further north in Galilee, where the first of three key events takes place. They destroy the Jewish towns of Galilee. They also capture a Jewish rebel who later becomes a critical figure in the formulation of Christianity.
This is where they captured one of the leaders of the rebellion, a Jew named Josephus Bar Matthias. Now, Josephus presented himself to the Flavians as a prophet.
He survived. He survived apparently by telling Vespasian that the prophecies of the Jews pointed out that Vespasian would become emperor. And of course he did, so Vespasian quite liked Josephus. He used him as a translator in his entourage. He used him to appeal to the rebels to surrender.
At this point, Josephus became a turncoat and worked with the Flavians against the rebellion.
Meanwhile, chaos is increasing back in Rome, where Nero's rule is being threatened.
In the year 68, the Senate found the courage to depose Nero and he committed suicide. Now, in that circumstance, Vespasian was a prime candidate to become emperor.
In the middle of this war, Vespasian returned to Rome and seized the throne. The Flavians then became the imperial family.
With Vespasian becoming the new Caesar in Rome, Titus stays behind on the battlefield and sets his sights on Jerusalem, where the other two key events take place. Titus encircles Jerusalem with a wall, and finally he razes the temple, leaving not one stone atop another.
It took a while. They eventually had to bring on starvation by building a wall, a barricade entirely enveloping the city.
What happens, of course, is the temple in 70 is completely destroyed.
For the Jews, it was the ultimate calamity because, of course, this was the house of their God, and it was destroyed by the Romans quite thoroughly. Titus, of course, was the victor of this great siege. Titus carried the spoils of this captured city back to Rome for his triumph. He took the treasures of the temple, their famous 7-branch candlestick. You can see it on the Arch of Titus in Rome. It celebrates that tremendous victory of Rome again triumphant, and Titus, of course, is the hero of the day.
All of the artifacts from the temple that they seized, they put on public display in what they refer to as the Palace of Peace, except for one item. The Jewish scripture, Josephus records that the Flavians took and placed in their private palace where no one was allowed to see it.
Although Titus Flavius successfully ended the rebellion in Judea, another rebellion soon broke out in Alexandria, Egypt. The Flavians were clear that this was not the end of the Jewish Messianic movement. They also recognized that it was the Jews' Messianic literature that was fueling this movement. So once they captured the Jewish scripture, they had all other copies of it destroyed.
And that's why the Dead Sea Scrolls had to have been buried in a cave, because that was the only way they could be safe from the Roman destruction. There was not a single scrap of literature found from the Messianic movement until the scrolls were discovered. That's why they're such a treasure, because they're the only real voice of the Messianic movement that we have.
And the real voice of the Jews' Messianic movement, according to our scholars, was violent and militaristic, not the pacifistic version depicted in the Gospels.
War against Rome was a Messianic war. So that's why I say that the scrolls are not only the literature of the Messianic movement in Palestine, they're also the literature of the war against Rome.
The Romans needed to subdue the Jews' religion, so they set about influencing it and changing it.
And it continues, Zion. This is only the beginning to a hidden identity awakened. The light that the Most High has caused to burn in us is getting ready to turn into a flamethrower. And it's about to set this whole world on fire. We're getting ready to witness an awakening like the world has never seen. Keep that hand on the plow and sound that trumpet, Zion!